Traders, covered in this week's video. Are we in a bull market? Will gold survive its all-time highs? What's going on with Tesla? And have cryptos finally calmed down? Stay tuned and let's talk about it. Okay, so let's have a very brief look at the economic calendar set for the week ahead, just to see what that increased volatility is going to be. So right now, obviously, globally, there's a lot of sensitivity to do with potential recessions and inflation, all kinds of ridiculous fears. At this time, most things do appear stable, and there's a lot of videos that are talking about impending market doom and crashes and housing crashes, and they've been out for about 3-4 years now. So it doesn't mean that those aren't necessary issues, but also the more we talk about issues, the less they tend to unfold the way we expect. Okay, so just having a look this week, I think Aussie news is going to be interesting to see what CPI data is coming out of that. Really, probably a bit more focused on the US dollar with unemployment claims, just to see, if there's a surprise number there. And then I think, again, out of interest is going to be the Bank of Japan's outlook report and their monetary policy statement. There's also a press conference. And so really all of that is to go, look, are they going to change things? Will we see a big shift in JPY pairs across the board? Finally, a little bit on Friday, I think, with the US dollar core PC data employment cost index, but yeah, relatively minor. I think a lot of focus is going to be on these and anything else that is potentially not foreseen. Okay, that being said, let's go across and have a look at the charts. Volatility index, volatility this week, generally a little bit lower. So again, not really a sign of any panic in the markets. This is just a temperature check, guys and girls, just to make sure that we're, there isn't anything building up that we can't see, but for the most part, the markets look happy. If we have a look at a dollar index, and the reason I mention that, sorry, is because that impacts traders. Traders are kind of waiting for doom and gloom and start basing their trading ideas around what they hear in the news, and it never really unfolds, and they get taken out by the market going the other way. And it's not a conspiracy, it's just, there's a separation between what the media wants to report and what the market's doing. Okay, so once you get that, it doesn't mess with your head as much. And okay, so dollar index here really struggling to get back over this 101 line. Hasn't really reconnected with 100 yet. There's nothing major happening here, but it is failing to get through that level. So we might ultimately, especially if we break outside of this consolidation, we've had 4 straight rows pretty much within the same range. 4 straight days, pretty much with the same range. And if we break to the downside, we might then see the market start to move. When we look at the euro against the dollar, we can see it just looks a little bit more bullish. We've got a series of high lows. We're closing up near the highs. Looks as though it is keen to break out. And if it can get back up above that 1.1 level, then it makes sense that it would potentially start to pick up momentum from there. So that's interesting, because if I have a look at some of the euro pairs, EURCAD, EURUSD, I'm going to show you that now. They look really good for possible trading opportunities this week. So let's just go through the rest and then I'll get to those. Sterling as well is trying to stay above this level. You can see that strong resistance there at 1.24, and it's trying to stay above it. It's not really strong. It has produced a lower high, and this is a bearish candle. I mean, it's a bullish candle, but closing bearishly, and you can see on the weekly, it's also not showing a lot of strength there. So, and actually, it's still technically kind of bumping its head up against that 20-period moving average on the monthly. So, not a lot of sign of strength there. We'll have to see how that goes. Aussie dollar is just pretty much going sideways. It's actually closed lower. You can see it's really where it becomes obvious that it's battling is when you look on the weekly chart. You could just see that depletion. It just cannot get over that line. But it will change the game if it can. If it can break above that, it will probably close above the moving averages, and then it will quickly start to become quite a bit stronger there. Right now, it's actually weak, so potentially it could break to the downside. We've got Kiwi dollar here, nice strong downtrend, heading down towards its lows. You can see it failed to break any high there. We could see something happen with the Australian dollar this week. But my point is Kiwi dollar's weak. We've got euro looking strong. So they're all doing their own thing, which, by the way, is not something that happens when the markets are on edge. Dollar yen. Dollar yen trying to break higher, coming back into these lows. So it is an uptrend here. And again, this could be due to Bank of Japan's policies. So that's why I say I want to be aware of what happens this week, whether that changes the game there. If we have a look at dollar Swissy is in this downtrend, looking relatively healthy. In fact, it's more of a downtrend than the euro dollar is in an uptrend. This is why they're not perfectly inversely correlated. It's a very loose correlation, and therefore just something to be aware of. And then you look at dollar CAD this last week is really bumped up. This is a particularly bullish move. Okay, it's actually aggressively moved to the upside. Distance-wise, you can see if you look at it, 1 candle down, off a level, support 1 candle up, and that monthly candle so far looking relatively bullish. The implication is it is range-bound. The implication is it's going to attempt to push to the top of the range. Let's bring on the calculated instruments and just have a look at a few of these directly. So let's look at the euro dollar, or just at the euro, to see how it's performing. Okay, again, performing relatively nicely. They're looking nice and strong. It's pulled back, set up nice and bullishly there on the daily. Overall, just coming in to these highs nice and strong. Let's look at sterling. Sterling also trying to push a little bit higher. We can see that. So this is all of Sterling's pairs collectively. Let's look at the Japanese yen. We can see that one is also potentially strengthening, but not so much actually. And then we would finish off with, say, CAD and R. So CAD yourself, you can see it here. You can see it breaking higher. So Canadian dollar actually generally getting a little bit stronger. And then we'll look at the Australian dollar here, which is actually starting to look a little bit weaker, or at least a retracement within an upward, generally trending direction. Okay, so we could see it shorten a little bit before it continues up. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens this week. And again, that's because we've got that AUD news coming out. So let's see how, if that potentially does strengthen it, and we see it start to do that. Okay, cool. Moving on, and let's go and have a look at some of these pairs. So very quickly, the ones that I quite like the look of, which to me are interesting. In the past, there was some of those yen pairs, not so much at the moment, actually. I'm really liking the look of EUROCAD for day trading as well. That weekly chart looking nice and bullish, trending higher. The monthly also looking nice and bullish. Any kind of pullback here would be potential buying opportunities for me. If I jump straight down to pound CAD, it's a very similar situation. Okay, also looking nice and bullish, also breaking up above these highs, also looking nice and good. So any kind of pullbacks there could be very good for buying opportunities. Then to the next one on my list is EURAUD. Very nice breakout and a retest at a bullish engulfing candle. Okay, it didn't engulf the previous one, but generally it's engulfing a lot of the price movement here this week, looking pretty good. And it's got a bit of room to move up to the next level there. So I quite like the look of that. Jumping and comparing that to pound Aussie, same thing again. We've had a series of bullish candles followed by bullish breakout candles. What do I mean by that? We can see these previous 5 candles have got some are failing to close any higher than that. We can see that the last one is closed up and outside of that range, which usually would imply that it's now managed to break free of that and it's free to effectively move on. It's kind of interesting seeing that similar on Pound Kiwi. So Pound Kiwi is starting to go a little bit parabolic, a little bit overextended, but for day trading purposes, it might still have a bit of juice in it. Same for Euro Kiwi. You can see they're just shooting up. So interesting. Those are the ones that catch my eye. Aussie Swissy, I also thought looked nice and bearish on this. Nice little move to the downside. Kiwi Swissy also looking kind of similar on that. So Aussie Kiwi pairs and CAD pairs offering some really nice potential moves there this week. Okay, let's move on and go back to where we were. Gold battling with this level. So a series of bullish candles at that 2000 level. I think I'm just super cautious as we're right at these highs. We could see a rejection. Make no mistake that there are plenty of sellers in this area. Plenty of sellers here, and therefore they're quite happy to see it get knocked back down before they then potentially exit to become buyers. They're not necessarily sellers all the way down, just enough in this area to put a lot of pressure. So there are plenty of also people who are buyers who've taken profits. Okay, so that we're at a tipping point here where there's enough buyers staying in the game and not enough sellers that we could keep it going. So this is why I'm super cautious on this. I'd like to see again a nice bullish candle break and close above the highs of these ones to see that sentiment. So it's not really trading it until it has clarified what it wants. I just highlighted this little bullish candle here on silver. I think silver is overextended. I'd love to see it do a pullback, head back down towards $24, and then continue onwards. But it's in an area where it could ultimately fail to break through this level. So also very cautious with that. Then looking at copper. Copper's started to head lower as well. Let's just kind of clean up these charts a bit. Copper started to head lower back down towards the bottom of the range. Natural gas is one of these ones where I'm really looking to see if it will expand to the upside here. It's been producing a lot of bullish divergence, bullish price action. We can see the candles have started to get a little bit smaller. And what often happens, it's not guaranteed, but what often happens is some sort of expansion after you get a nice little bit of accumulation and seeing it push to the upside. Crude oils are still range bound. They've rejected this level of resistance. Okay, looking at it from a monthly perspective, not super bullish. It's possible we could actually see them start to head a little bit lower this week, but they won't pick up momentum until they break below that 74 level because they're just still within the range. For example, here looking at Brent crude, bullish candle here at the bottom of the range could potentially signify that it's going to break higher, but overall their continued failure to break above resistance implies there could be some more downside there as well. But technically they're in a range. Wheat. Right now, I've pointed out lots of attempts for it to turn around, but it's just sitting here at the bottom of this range. I'd be curious. I mean, that weekly looks nice and bearish in isolation. The monthly looks nice and bearish, but the daily does keep showing signs of bullish intention. So I'd be interested to see this week if we find some bullish candles and then push back up to the top of the range by the end of the week. If we don't, then this divergence will just work its way out, but it has been trying to turn around desperately, and I want to see if it is just going to produce any more signals on that. Then looking at coffee, Coffee has had a really nice boost recently, and that's a bit of a failure at this off this 200 level. And so my expectation here is to see it push back down a little bit, potentially into these highs, maybe then find a bullish setup. Sugar obviously has just been on fire lately, and you can see that exhaustion starting to come in now on the weekly candle. It's really starting to flame out, so to speak. It's just not, it's it's not going to keep going. It'll eventually start to slow down. Potentially this coming week there could be an indecision candle or a candle sort of closing around these highs. So not looking for much of that. I'd like to see again a healthy pullback down towards 22 and then see it recover from there. Cotton, I spoke about this because I thought, are we going to get a breakout of this? We got a false breakout. It's usually within 2 or 3 candles, literally 2 to 3 candles, that we can get a false breakout, and it literally 1 candle out, second candle back down, and third candle all the way back down through these lows. Okay, so that's a failed breakout, and so this week makes more sense for this to potentially head a little bit lower. Moving on to the global indices, we're still stuck within this downward general bearish trend line. It's still a downtrend technically on the weekly. We formed a bullish indecision or doji candle, inside candle as well, which could be a turning point. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not really confident until this looks nice and bullish. Really nice, relatively medium bullish candle here and a break above the high. I'd really like to see it close a little bit high, but we're not out of the woods yet. So extremely cautious for me. I need to see if this little bullish candle here, which is a nice little inside bullish candle with a bit of a wick, it's not super bullish. It's more bullish than bearish, but it's not a very strong one. I'd like to see if we can push up from here and break through this week and finish strong. But there is a very real possibility that we could find ourselves heading lower this week. S&P as well has sort of breached this little, just a line in the sand that I put in there, which means it's starting to lose that upwards momentum, and you can see it on the weekly. It's struggling a little bit here. So again, we'd need a full-on bullish breakout. Something would have to happen to kick the markets into that kind of gear. They're not showing a lot of strength. On the other hand, should we close heavily to the downside here, that then changes the medium-term picture, what's going to happen over the next few months. And so I'm curious to see how that goes. So extra cautious until we break out to the upside. Also mentioning here on tech stocks, we keep producing these bullish signals. That's a very, very bullish signal. We really, really, really should have continued up from that in most situations, and we haven't. So there's not a lot of buyers above this area, and I'm curious to see if that's going to result in breaks below this low, or if we'll manage to get back over the line. We could, but you have to point out that it is struggling at the moment. There's no doubt about it as well. We've got a series of high lows, strong resistance, and the Russell isn't able to push up through that level. The FTSE overextended. Actually, non-US markets are looking particularly good. We've had some really big pushes all the way back up, almost towards the old highs, and they're not looking so bad. They seem very keen to keep going, but 8,000 is right there. I'd like to see us have a pullback down to 7,800 and then take another run at those levels. The DAX as well, very nice. Look at that bullish engulfing candle. It's usually a continuation candle. This might actually want to see if it can just tap that 16,000 before taking a break. ASX, yeah, it started a bit of a correction. Nice little bullish candles here could be that opportunity that it's looking for to continue back up to the upside. If it should just fall back down towards these levels, if we see that happen across that, then yes, the implication is possibly the markets are not managing to recover. But for the most part, they do generally appear to be more bullish than bearish. So I mentioned in my intro clip, I was talking about that. So a couple of things are very important is that we are operating above that 50-period moving average for almost all of these. In fact, our 10 and 20 monthly moving averages, which I have separately, I'm not going to show you that here. We're operating above that. They're bullish. Okay, so a lot of the indicators are saying that we are in a bull market, but it's not a strong bull market. Okay, so there are degrees of bull markets. A neutral market would be going sideways. As soon as it starts heading higher, it would go through a degree of level 1, I guess, to level 10 bullishness. We're in level 2 or 3 in terms of bullishness now. It's not super bullish. Okay, but it is bullish. We are in a bull market, technically speaking. Okay, Apple. You can see here battling a little bit with this level. There's some bearish divergence with resistance. Has moved higher, and you can see it's absolutely here is where it starts to stand out a little bit. We are battling up against that. Okay, so that 165 level is a bit of a ceiling for it. Interesting to see how that's happening. Okay, Amazon is pushing higher. That's a nice little move high. You can see MACD's a little bit flat on that. It's bumping up against that 50-period moving average. But for the most part, again, I have to say Amazon is now looking more and more bullish. So optimistic. I like the look of that. There's a couple of these where they're starting to give hints that they might be turning around and starting they've had their sell-off and they're starting to look more and more bullish. What makes this year different from previous years, certainly going back to the year 2000, is we are certainly in a situation which we haven't seen before in terms of the behavior on the weekly chart and the monthly charts for the S&P, the Nasdaq, they are more sideways than they have been for a while. And we may very well have a lot more of that sideways behavior throughout 2023. But what I would say is this, is that a lot of these have moved, their longer term moving averages have shifted into bullish mode, which is interesting to me because it would obviously be frustrating if they just shift into bullish mode only to go into bearish mode. So for example, here we've got the 10 and 20 now above it on the weekly. That is a relatively decent signal that this has now shifted from bear mode into bull mode. We've got a higher low. Potentially we break this. We've got a higher high. It would be unusual, but not impossible. We could shift back into that if we're going to have a weird range bound year. But otherwise, we are at the early stages of the moves for a lot of these starting to head higher. One I found really interesting was a major gap down by AT&T, still at this danger zone. It has been there for a while. I've been commenting on it certainly for a couple of years now, so interesting. And that's a very big bearish candle. It's got buyers below here, but heavy selling at the top, just not able to get outside of that box. ARK Innovation, again here, look at these moving averages here, the 10 and the 20. It's just roughly on top of itself. Not quite out of it yet, but there are more and more bullish signs coming in here. Versus, just to go back, versus Amazon. Amazon is looking way more bullish than that. Now, I do know that one of the biggest constituents in Cathie Wood's stuff is usually Tesla. So we could talk about Tesla when we get down to that. Tesla is possibly one of the ones dragging it down. Again, here we've got this big move up. We're still in a downtrend. We're kind of above that 50-period moving average. That's a really nice potential, especially if we close near the highs for this candle. If we close near the highs, that would be a very nice bullish signal. So I'd like to see price pull down, produce a bullish candle, and finish higher by the end of the week. Tesco, on fire, man. Look at these, looking great. It needs to come back. I need pullbacks for trading opportunities, but it's heading back up to these highs, which is also quite good. And we've got Amex as well. So I was looking at these bullish candles here saying, look, it should be trying to get out. Then it fell down, but then it produced a very bullish signal as well. But it's got to get above this level. And this is what makes all of this so weird, is we're getting clear, very, very strong buy signals from below. And then they just can't get any higher, which is a red flag in itself, or at least an amber traffic light, if that's kind of the comparison I'm using. But it's really trying. And that's a very strong pushback from the markets. Right. Berkshire Hathaway, naturally, old Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger demonstrating experience and wisdom coming through here. You can see it's starting to really close a lot higher on that weekly. Looks good. Looks like it's almost free of the danger zone. So again, this week could change that. It is the final week of the month. So that's why it's important. But man, if this does break and close high, that's great. So there are clues here, ladies and gentlemen, that the markets have the potential to close strong this coming week. In recent months, they have often performed better when I was expecting them to be a little bit more uncertain. So it's interesting. I want to see what happens this week. And as soon as they've had a great week and I'm looking to see them continue that the next week, they don't. Then they stumble a bit. So what I'm going to do at this time is they look okay. They should have that juice to continue. But I recognize that a lot of them are sitting at these major levels. Look at Coca-Cola. Look at that. Just kind of coming up that 63.94, call it 64 levels. Just on to close above that. It looks good on the monthly. This could be a potential breakout level, but there's some definite bearish divergence on that. It's not super strong here. So possibly it'll stumble again and then try again in a couple of months. Then it'll start to look bullish and break out. So I'm up for that, absolutely. BP bumping its head, danger zone, can't quite get past that, coming back down. So again, all of these could be setting up, and by a week or two's time, they could be, at all new levels. And that would be interesting, and I would bring it back if that is the case. If that is the case, I want to bring it back to the fact that I was talking about that the longer term moving averages have shifted bullish. And I only bring that up because we know that the past cannot always predict the future. But if we imagine that if we look back over 20, 30, 40, 50 years and the indicators had been proven reliable, in that situation, the 10 and 20, for example, on the weekly, had proven consistently reliable, we can then add this to that. It adds to our faith going forwards. So there's a strong correlation between Exxon and BP and crude oils. Okay, so crude oils, we spoke about them not looking super strong. Here you can see it's definitely pushing up at those highs. Bit of an indecision candle here and also right at those highs. So comment, just again, lot of price at its all-time highs. Now we've got General Motors looking more and more bearish on that monthly, really coming back down towards those lows. And it is range bound, but I would say here, I'm not so convinced. Not super safe yet. We've got lots of bullish candles here. Bottom of a range could manage to push its way high, but it would have to have a really good week for it to do that. Otherwise, I see it struggling. We've got JP Morgan Chase overall, still looking good. Bullish inside candle. Has the potential here to go a little bit higher. Adidas, also again, nice little uptrend, pull back, nice little opportunity here again, even on the daily, pull back there, bullish candle here, back into this area. There we go, thank you. Been waiting for that for a while. Now I'd like to see it continue higher. Meta is, again, I wanted it to pull back into this area. There's our weekly retracement from last week. And yes, there's that possibility. There's still potential for it to come a little bit lower down, and I'd like to see if we can finish higher this week. Morgan Stanley, really nice bullish candle here, and it's pushing up. That weekly looks okay, doesn't look weak, and the monthly looks good. Potential, these look more bullish to the upside. Nvidia has just had a really, really good run from the lows here. Such a small, an unassuming candle that actually led to the moves to the upside here. Here you can see a really nice inverted head and shoulders. It's completed the move. I'd like to, and now it's battling. That is 4 weeks in a row, actually 5 weeks. I'm going to include this previous candle where it just isn't able to go anywhere. And I'm going to throw on a little bit of a comment on this here. I'm just going to mark that level there. So it has to get past that. Alternatively, it's got to come back down to 250 and then continue upwards. Consolidation here, so it could break out. I'm just highlighting this. I think the move to the upside, there's a consolidation, breakout, or a breakdown. One of the two, I think, is most likely to happen out of 3 or 4 different options. Then we have this. I was wondering if we'd get a bit of a pullback and a breakout. Why did I wonder whether we had that? Oh, because I was looking for a pullback down to this if we were going to get a breakout to the upside. If we're going to build up to a bearish breakout pattern, we will end up coming back down to this level and not breaking out. PayPal. Man, lots of bullish candles, really trying to get past this bearish line. Look at this, man, that's what's it. Now it's about 9 or 10 weeks in a row. It just cannot get out of this range. It's got to get out of that. It's really got to break free. It attempted to as well, also failed breakouts. And look at those candles getting really, really, really small. Not looking that good. It's got to make a move from that. Come on. Spotify. Just battling in this area. That's about 10 days to 2 and a bit weeks worth of just nothing happening there. You can see on the weekly, exhaustion starts coming in, not doing much there. Need to see this do a break. These not looking great. So Spotify, PayPal not looking as good as the rest. Like Amazon is looking good compared to those. Spider and FedEx, let's have a look. Nice and bullish. Yep, that's got potential to head higher. FedEx, oh man, oh yeah, battling here as well. Still, and we've got inside indecision candles. That could either, again, that if ever I saw as a break, either way, not sure. So just, I'm going to wait and see. I would say a break above this candle's high here, which puts us at 235.81, or break below the low becomes the significant one. And Tesla, so Tesla gap down this week. We've got a series of lower highs, lower lows. We're range bound, but bearish range bound. We're starting to test the low of these levels. So I've adjusted the low of this orange box, which I call that danger zone, because I needed to get back up above this level if I think it's going to break this downwards momentum. But what it's forming currently now implies the very real potential, especially here, potentially closing under that 50 period on the monthly, is that especially if it closes much lower, it implies that it's going to return back down to 125, and so we need to be prepared for that as a possibility. Alternatively, if we can reject where it is now and push back up towards the highs this week, again, it doesn't count until it's really exited this box significantly to the downside, or if it's up to the upside here. This is its danger zone. So that's why I bring this up, but that monthly is starting to lean more and more like Tesla's could have 125 or possibly 100 and lower in its future. So again, I'm not going to count it yet until we see a close either way. And this week should then reveal quite a bit on that. Okay, we've got Vanguard also trying to break a little bit higher. Again, you could see the behavior of price at this price action at this point in the past, and you could see where it's battling a little bit over here. But it's creeping up. That monthly candle looks nice, closed right near the highs. We've broken the high. Just got to get free of all these moving averages. All right, there's lots of different institutions that do stuff at these moving averages, so I bring that up. Then we have bonds, treasuries, we've got 10-year T-notes battling here. Again, look at just that behavior under that 50-period moving average. And the monthly, when you look at the monthly, it clarifies what the problem is. So we can see you just can't get past that. And there's no but the reason this is not necessarily a bad thing. What does this tell us? It tells us no one's really interested in buying these, which means for now their money is still sitting in stocks. Okay, that's what it kind of says indirectly. EUROBUND as well, broken lower, downtrend here within this bullish divergence for sure. It's trying to turn around, also battling. You could just see the last 4 months. So we'd have to see, if we saw something would have to happen. We'd have to see the markets drop. We'd have to see a significant boost to the upside. to signal, okay, something's shifting. We're not seeing that at the moment. And volatility, so it would have to be a surprise thing. I hate to say it, it would have to be a surprise thing. Something we haven't foreseen or a shock to the system. Bitcoin. Okay, so normal, natural, healthy retracement on the weekly here. We had a consolidation and a breakout, and technically a failed breakout because we broke out of that consolidation and we came back down, but the trend is still intact. So I'm looking to see what happens. Will the levels hold, or will we see a deeper retracement? And actually, even if we ever pull back to 25,000, ladies and gentlemen, right back down here, that is still not necessarily a bad thing from a weekly perspective. Okay, that will be, I think, influenced by whatever else happens on the week. Ethereum. Pull back was a potential nice little bullish candle here off these highs and then pulled right back down here. Now, this is a double bottom if it can turn from here. So it's at a really good point to recover from here. But let's call that one a bit of a failed breakout, a rejection there. But it's in a really good area here. So I'm not expecting Ethereum to fall as far as Bitcoin if there is still some falling to be done. Solana, same thing. Overall, it doesn't really count until we see what happens. But you can see they've all battled a little bit here. Okay, and you can see Binance as well, just sideways, struggling up a little bit, just mentioning that. All right, so there we go. So let's wrap this up. There are clues, there are signs of bullishness in amongst individual equities. The euro dollar is not looking that bad. We've got that potential for that US dollar to continue to weaken a bit. We could see some of these existing trends continue, but there's no doubt that a few of them are sitting at major levels, and therefore the best thing to do for traders is just watch until they decide what they're going to do. Just leave them until you get clear signal. You might get it in one day, maybe Monday does something or Tuesday does something and clearly just shows what the markets are going to do for the rest of the week. But just be prepared as well. Patience and discipline. The discipline is in the patience, in waiting for markets to move, and obviously focusing, if you're interested in one particular market, for example, waiting for it to give those clear signals. Thank you very much, listen. I want to wish you a wonderful week. Don't forget to plan your trades and trade your plan.